Hello, my name is Dr. Stephen Critchlow. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. I've also been a church pastor, and I'm doing a series of talks on the topic of depression. And today I want to look just briefly, not in any great depth, at the body and depression. What is going on in our bodies? What is going on in our brains when we go through periods of depression? Now, this is a very complicated subject, and I can only just touch on it briefly today. But in the brain, I've mentioned already that in childhood, some childhood experiences can make us more prone to depression. It doesn't mean that one is going to get depression because one has these experiences in childhood that I've mentioned already, but what it does mean is it makes it slightly more likely. So what is going on in the brain? Well, there are different areas of the brain, obviously, but one of those is called the hippocampus, and it's likely that those early childhood experiences are affecting in some way the cells in the hippocampus, and that is an effect that is there, and that will later come into the picture when somebody becomes depressed later on. Also, hormone is involved. Cortisol is one of those hormones that is released when one is stressed, and that also has an effect on the brain and the body. And then thirdly, we have substances that are released from the nerve endings in the brain, and those are called serotonin and noradrenaline, and both of those are involved in depression. We know that because we know that antidepressants actually work by increasing the levels of serotonin and also noradrenaline, and some work on one, some work on the other, and some work on both. Now, it's not quite that straightforward. There are many other things going on as well, and I'm not going to touch on those. But we know, for example, that serotonin is involved because we know that people who are prone to depression, if you artificially lower the level of serotonin in their bodies, and you can do that through a particular diet, when you do that, actually, they may become depressed. If you're not prone to depression, that won't happen. But if you are prone to depression and you artificially lower the level of serotonin in the body, then that may well have an effect on your depressed mood. You may become depressed. So these different things interact, and it is actually a lot more complicated than I've painted there. But that gives you some idea of what is going on in the body in depression. Of course, the body is also going to be affected by weight loss, loss of appetite, all those other things going on in the body as well, which I've mentioned in a previous talk. Depression, obviously, is going to be also more common in those who've struggled in life. So, for example, it's more common in the divorced, the separated, the unemployed, and prisoners, people who've seen active military service, farmers living in rural areas, and those with other psychiatric conditions, and sometimes young people living away from home in bedsit type accommodation. All of those groups may be more prone to depression. So what I've said today is depression affects our bodies, and there are certain groups who are more likely to be depressed. Of course, when we look at the Bible and we think about how people are responding to different situations in the Bible, we come across people like King David. And we find King David is going through depression quite often in his life. And here from Psalm 32 is a little bit about his experience. And I might return to this later as well in a further talk. But here he says, "When I kept silent, my body wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My vitality was drained away as with the fever heat of summer." So David is there expressing the fact that his body is really struggling with his emotional state. His body is actually wasting away. Other times he talks about his bones wasting away as well, and he's groaning all day long. And that experience he's going through is typical of depression when it is quite severe. But in that period, he also talks about this. He says, "Many are the sorrows of the wicked, but he who trusts in the Lord, loving kindness shall surround him. Be glad in the Lord and rejoice, you righteous ones, and shout for joy, all you are upright in heart." And the beautiful thing is that even when we might be depressed, if we cry out to the Lord and actually look to him, then he can help us in that depression. Thank you.